The oxidase test is a presumptive test used to determine whether a gram-negative rod-shaped bacterium belongs in the family Enterobacteriaceae or non-Enterobacteriaceae. Now, under the microscope, these two look very similar, gram-negative rods. And a gram-negative enteric or Enterobacteriaceae is actually quite different from a gram-negative non-Enterobacteriaceae or non-enteric. Right? Two very large families, and even within those families, there are hundreds of bacteria. So being able to determine whether something is an enteric bacterium and a non-enteric bacterium does a really large part in trying to identify the nature of this bacterium. Generally, most non-enteric bacteria are oxidase positive, whereas the enteric bacteria are oxidase negative. Now, sometimes we get this confused with our catalase test, right? Because catalase, the reaction in the catalase test produces oxygen, right? This has nothing to do with catalase. This has nothing to do with whether this organism can grow aerobically or not. Oxidase is simply an enzyme that's within the membrane of our bacteria, and there's a very specific one here that we're looking at, right? So that's really all we're testing here, right? And again, using this as a presumptive test to determine whether our gram-negative rod is an enteric versus a non-enteric. There are many ways to do this, right? This dry slide is the most efficient way because all our reagents are already on these discs. So all we got to do is we take our bacterium, and I'm going to sterilize my loop here while I'm talking. We just got to take our bacterium, and then we simply spread it onto the test area. Now, generally, it's best to use some sort of wooden device, right? But I like using the loop because it is reusable. Right, and I'm cheap like that, right? However, if you scrape it too hard with metal, you can get a false negative result. So gently touch, right? So I'm going to take my bacterium A. I'm simply going to place it onto our test medium. I'm going to let that sit. And then while I'm waiting for this to cool, I'll just kind of remind us this idea of the presumptive test, right? Remember, the presumptive test means I've already done a little bit of work. I have these two bacteria. You know, I know that they are gram-negative rods, and then for me, I hear gram-negative rods. Oh, it's got to be enteric or non-enteric. So I'm going to do an oxidase test to help me determine the identity of these things, right? And now I'm going to take my bacterium B. Usually I take not a super large amount, but a kind of a healthy amount. And then I'm going to place that on there. And then now we're going to wait. All right, and the reaction takes anywhere from, well, actually it's happening very fast. You can already start to see, right? But it can take as long as about 30 seconds, depending on the nature of how much bacteria you put on there, how fresh they are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right, but in this case, a positive result will turn our disc purple, right? And you can clearly see that B is turning purple. So based on what I said, which of these two bacteria is the enteric bacterium? Which of these two is the non-enteric bacterium? Okay, so I'll let you guys try and figure that out.